The wind howled through Chicago's concrete jungle that late October afternoon, rattling the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sophia Langston's penthouse on the 72nd floor of the Willis Tower residences. Inside, the air was thick not with romance, but with the kind of tension you'd feel before a boardroom showdown. The living room, usually a sleek masterpiece of marble floors and minimalist furniture, had been hastily rearranged. A small wooden podium stood in the center, flanked by a couple of folding chairs. No flowers, no string quartet, no champagne flutes clinking. Just a handful of paparazzi crowding the glass wall outside, their camera flashes popping like gunfire, and a nervous-looking priest clutching his Bible like it was a lifeline. Sophia stood there, all 5'8" of her, in a simple white dress that hugged her frame, a last-minute pick from Nordstrom because, well, it looked bridal enough. Her dark hair was swept into a tight chignon, not a strand out of place, but her hazel eyes betrayed her. They darted around the room, sharp and restless, like a CEO about to fire someone. Her hands, though, told a different story, fingers trembling, just enough to make the pen wobble as she signed the marriage certificate on the coffee table. Next to her was Ethan Carter, the guy who, until 2 months ago, was just the nanny she'd hired off some upscale agency's roster. Now he was her groom, drowning in a borrowed suit that pinched at the shoulders and bunched at the waist. His sandy hair was a mess, probably from running his hands through it one too many times, and his green eyes flicked between Sophia and the priest like he was waiting for someone to yell cut. On this bizarre movie set, he shifted his weight, sneakers scuffing the polished floor, and muttered something under his breath that sounded suspiciously like, "What the hell am I doing?" And then there was Noah, Sophia's 5-year-old son, perched on the gray leather sofa across the room. He was dressed in a tiny navy blazer, his dark curls spilling over his forehead, clutching his stuffed bear like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. His wide eyes bounced between his mom and Ethan, confused but quiet, too quiet, the way he got when the world felt too big for him. The priest, a wiry guy with glasses sliding down his nose, cleared his throat. "Do you, Sophia Langston, take this man, Ethan Carter, to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Sophia's jaw tightened. She didn't look at Ethan. "I do," she said, her voice flat, like she was signing off on a merger instead of a marriage. "And do you, Ethan Carter, take this woman, Sophia Langston?" "Yeah, sure, I do," Ethan cut in, rubbing the back of his neck. The priest blinked, thrown off, but nodded and flipped a page in his book. This wasn't a wedding. It was a transaction. A desperate, last-ditch play to save Sophia's empire from crumbling under a scandal she didn't even start. It all went back to Victor Grayson, her slimy rival in the finance game. A month ago, he'd leaked a story to the tabloids. Sophia Langston, Chicago's ice queen of Wall Street, abandons husband and child for power, complete with photoshopped pics of her leaving Ethan and Noah at some random park, a forged marriage license from years back, and worst of all, a chilling AI-generated audio clip of her voice saying, "I don't need them holding me back." It was fake as hell, but the internet didn't care. Stocks tanked, investors panicked, and her PR team was drowning. Denying it outright? Not an option. Victor had threatened to release more proof if she fought back. So here she was, turning the lie into a photo op. She tracked down Ethan, poor, clueless Ethan, who'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time in that park photo, and offered him a deal. Play her husband for 6 months, save her reputation, and walk away with a fat check. He'd said yes, mostly for the money, but also because of Noah. The kid had wormed his way into Ethan's heart with those quiet stares, and the way he'd hum along when Ethan strummed his beat-up guitar to help him sleep. "All right," Sophia said, straightening up and smoothing her dress. She turned to Ethan, her tone all business. "Just sign it, Ethan. We're not doing this for love, we're doing it for the cameras." He snorted, grabbing the pen. "Yeah, well, I didn't sign up to be Mr. Langston when I took this gig." "You're not." She crossed her arms, nails tapping against her elbow. "You're just the guy saving my ass right now." Ethan scribbled his name, the ink smudging a little, and tossed the pen back on the table. "Happy now?" "Not even close," she muttered, glancing at the paparazzi still snapping away outside. The headlines tomorrow would be gold. Sophia Langston ties the knot in secret ceremony. Her team had already tipped off a few friendly outlets. Damage control, step 1. The priest adjusted his glasses, looking relieved to be almost done. By the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, I now pronounce you husband and wife. He paused, a faint smile creeping up. You may now kiss the bride. The room went dead silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Sophia's head snapped toward Ethan, her eyes narrowing like she was daring him to try it. He froze, mouth half open, then let out a nervous laugh. Seriously? He said, loud enough for Noah to look up from his bear. Sophia's lips pressed into a thin line. Don't you dare, she hissed under her breath, turning her face away. But Ethan, damn him, didn't back down. He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the cheap drugstore cologne he'd probably splashed on an hour ago. His hand brushed hers, warm and calloused, and he leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. If we're faking it, let's at least make it look good. Before she could snap back, he tilted her chin up with a finger bold as hell for a guy who'd been changing diapers 2 weeks ago and kissed her. It wasn't some Hollywood swoon moment. It was quick, firm, a little awkward, his lips chapped against hers. But it was enough. Enough for the cameras to go wild outside. Enough for Noah to giggle softly from the couch. Enough for Sophia's heart to lurch in a way she hadn't felt in years. She pulled back fast, cheeks flaming, and shoved his chest. What the hell was that? Ethan grinned, sheepish but unapologetic. Photo finish. You're welcome. Sophia glared, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand like she could erase it. But she couldn't erase the heat creeping up her neck or the way the priest was smirking now, packing up his Bible. The paparazzi were eating it up. She could already see the shots plastered across TMZ. Mission accomplished, maybe, but at what cost? She stormed over to the bar cart in the corner, pouring herself a shot of bourbon neat, no ice. Ethan wandered over to Noah, ruffling the kid's hair. You okay, buddy? He asked, voice softer now. Noah nodded, hugging his bear tighter. Are you my daddy now? Ethan's smile faltered, and he shot a glance at Sophia, who'd frozen mid-sip. Something like that, he said, dodging the question. Wanna go grab your trains? As Noah scampered off to his room, Sophia downed the bourbon in one gulp, the burn steadying her. She turned to Ethan, her voice low and edged with steel. Don't get comfortable. This is temporary. 6 months, $1 million, and you're out. He met her gaze, that dumb grin still lingering. Sure thing, boss. But you might want to work on your blushing for next time. She flipped him off and he laughed, a real laugh, the kind that echoed in the penthouse's cold corners. For a second, it almost felt normal. Almost. But then the flashes outside flared again, and she remembered. This wasn't a home. It was a stage. And they were just actors with a script they hadn't written. Hey, if you're curious where that kiss is going to take them, or if Sophia's going to deck Ethan first, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment below. What do you think? Start of something real or just a perfect act? A week after the sham wedding, Sophia Langston stood in front of her full-length mirror, smoothing the creases of a crimson gown that screamed money and power. The dress hugged her like a second skin, plunging just low enough to turn heads but high enough to keep her untouchable. Her penthouse bedroom was a fortress of luxury black silk sheets, a skyline view that could make anyone feel like a king, but tonight, it felt more like a war room. She was prepping for battle, and the battlefield was the Chicago Children's Hospital Gala, the kind of glitzy event where millionaires pretended to care about sick kids while cutting backroom deals over $20 cocktails. Down the hall, Ethan was wrestling with a bow tie in the guest bathroom, muttering curses under his breath. Who invented these things? He grumbled, yanking the black strip loose for the third time. The tuxedo Sophia's assistant had overnight him was a size too big, making him look like a kid playing dress-up. He gave up, tossed the tie on the counter, and ran a hand through his hair, settling for a half-decent knot on his regular tie instead. Good enough. He wasn't the star tonight, Sophia was. He was just the arm candy. Noah toddled into the living room, drowning in a pint-sized navy vest and slacks, his stuffed bear dangling from one hand. Ethan scooped him up, grinning. Look at you, little man. Sharp as a tack. Noah giggled, burying his face in Ethan's shoulder. And for a second, the whole fake family thing didn't feel so fake. Sophia emerged, heels clicking on the marble floor, and stopped short when she saw them. "You're not wearing the bow tie," she said, voice clipped. Ethan shrugged, setting Noah down. "Couldn't figure it out. Besides, this works, right?" She sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Fine. Just don't talk too much tonight. Smile, nod, and let me handle the rest." "Got it, boss," he said, saluting her with a smirk that made her roll her eyes. The gala was at the Palmer House Hilton, a stone's throw from the penthouse. The ballroom glittered like something out of a fairy tale, crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling, waiters weaving through the crowd with trays of champagne, and a string quartet playing soft enough to let the gossip hum louder. Sophia strode in like she owned the place, which wasn't far from the truth. Ethan trailed behind, Noah's hand in his, feeling every eye in the room sizing him up. Whispers followed them. "That's her husband. Where'd she dig him up? Cute kid, though." They hit the photo line first, red carpet, flashing bulbs, the works. Sophia looped her arm through Ethan's, her smile tight but flawless. He tried to match it, but his grin came out lopsided, more nervous than charming. Noah clung to his leg, hiding from the lights. A reporter in a sequined dress shoved a mic in their faces. "Sophia, Ethan, tell us about the wedding, such a whirlwind romance." Sophia opened her mouth, ready with her rehearsed line. It was private, intimate, just us, but Ethan beat her to it. "Oh yeah, total whirlwind," he said, scratching his neck. I proposed at the park, right? Pushed Noah on the swings, got down on one knee, the whole deal." She couldn't say no. The crowd cooed, cameras clicking faster. Sophia's smile froze, her nails digging into his arm. She leaned in, voice a razor-sharp whisper. "Where the hell did you pull that story from?" "I don't know, I panicked," he hissed back, still grinning for the lenses. "You're welcome, by the way. It worked, though." The reporter ate it up, scribbling notes, and the buzz turned warm, so sweet. A real family man, until Sophia spotted Victor Grayson lurking near the bar, his shark grin cutting through the crowd. He raised his glass to her, a silent taunt. She straightened, steering Ethan and Noah toward their table. "Keep it together," she muttered. "He's watching." The night dragged on, speeches, a silent auction, too much small talk. Ethan stuck to soda, Noah dozed in his lap, and Sophia worked the room like a pro, shaking hands and dodging questions about her mystery husband. By the time they piled into the chauffeured SUV back to the penthouse, she was exhausted, her heels killing her, and Ethan was humming some tune under his breath that made Noah stir and smile. Back home, Sophia kicked off her shoes and poured herself a glass of Pinot Noir, the city lights painting her face in neon streaks through the windows. Ethan carried Noah to bed, tucking him in with his bear. The penthouse settled into a rare quiet until she heard it. A soft, mournful melody drifting from the west wing, where the locked room sat like a ghost she'd buried years ago. She set her glass down, heart pounding, and followed the sound. The door to her room, the one she'd told him never to touch, was cracked open. Inside, Ethan sat at the old upright piano, its walnut finish dulled by time, his fingers coaxing out a tune that hit her like a punch to the gut. It was her sister's piano, the one Emily had played every night before cancer took her. Sophia hadn't touched it in 7 years. "What the hell are you doing?" she snapped, storming in. The music stopped abruptly, Ethan's hands hovering over the keys. He turned, startled. "I know I couldn't sleep, so I thought." "You thought wrong." She cut him off, voice shaking. "Get out, now." Ethan stood, jaw tight. "Look, I didn't know it was some sacred thing, okay? It's just a piano." "It's not just a piano," she shouted, louder than she meant to. Noah's bear slipped from her grip. She didn't even realize she'd grabbed it from his room and hit the floor. "You don't get to waltz in here and touch whatever you want. This isn't your house, Ethan. You're not my husband." He stared at her, something flickering in his eyes, hurt, maybe, or anger. "Yeah, then why am I here? You want me to play your husband out there but not know a damn thing about you in here? Make up your mind, Sophia." She flinched, the words cutting deeper than she'd admit. Get out, she repeated, quieter now, pointing to the door. He didn't argue. He brushed past her, shoulder bumping hers, and disappeared down the hall. The silence swallowed her whole, heavier than before. She sank onto the piano bench, staring at the keys, her fingers brushing where his had been. The room smelled faintly of dust and memories. Emily laughing, teaching her chopsticks, promising they'd play duets forever. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she swiped it away, furious at herself. At him. Out in the living room, Ethan flopped onto the couch, tugging off his tie and tossing it aside. He could still hear the echo of that melody in his head, the one he'd played for his mom when she'd left, the one he hadn't touched since his dad's scandal blew everything apart. He didn't know why he'd gone in there tonight. Maybe it was Noah's sleepy whimpers. Maybe it was the way Sophia had looked at him at the gala, like she didn't hate him for 5 whole seconds. Stupid, he muttered, rubbing his face. This gig was supposed to be simple cash, kid, done. Not whatever this was turning into. Back in the locked room, Sophia picked up Noah's bear, clutching it to her chest. The city hummed outside, indifferent, and she wondered how long she could keep pretending out there. In here, everywhere. Rain battered the penthouse windows, a relentless drumroll against the glass that drowned out the hum of Chicago below. It was past midnight, the kind of hour where the city felt like a ghost town, even from 72 floors up. Sophia sat hunched over her laptop in the dining room, the blue glow of a Zoom call washing over her face. Her hair was loose now, spilling over her shoulders, and she'd swapped the gala gown for a faded Northwestern hoodie about as casual as she ever got. The PR team droned on about stock updates and press releases, but her mind was elsewhere, stuck on that damn piano and the fight with Ethan. A sharp cry cut through the static of the call. Noah. She muted her mic, head snapping toward his room. Another whimper, softer this time, but enough to make her stomach twist. She glanced at the clock, 12:47 a.m., and rubbed her temples. Can we wrap this up? She said, unmuting. I got a kid to deal with. The team nodded, screens blinking out one by one, and she shut the laptop with a thud. She padded down the hall, barefoot on the cold marble, and pushed Noah's door open. He was curled up in his Spider-Man sheets, face scrunched, tears streaking his cheeks. Mommy, he mumbled, voice thick with sleep and fear. Bad dream. Hey, it's okay, she said, sitting on the edge of his bed. She brushed his curls back, her touch gentle but clumsy. She wasn't good at this part. What was it? Monsters, he whispered, clutching his bear tighter. Big ones. She forced a smile. No monsters here, buddy. Just you, me, and she stopped herself before saying Ethan's name. Just us. But Noah shook his head. Want Ethan? He sings. Sophia's jaw tightened. Of course he'd ask for him. Ethan had been the one humming lullabies every night, strumming that stupid guitar until Noah drifted off. She hadn't heard him leave after their blowout. His shoes were still by the door, so he was probably sulking on the couch. Ethan's sleeping, she lied. How about I stay till you're out? Noah nodded, but his lip trembled, and she knew it wouldn't stick. Sure enough, 5 minutes later he was fidgeting again, eyes wide open. She sighed, defeated. Fine, I'll get him. She found Ethan sprawled on the living room couch, one arm slung over his face, the TV flickering mute infomercials about air fryers. His tie was a crumpled heap on the floor, and his shirt was untucked, sleeves rolled up. He looked normal, too normal for this mess she'd dragged him into. Ethan, she said, nudging his leg with her foot. Wake up. He groaned, peeling his arm away and squinting at her. What? You firing me already? Noah had a nightmare. He wants you. She crossed her arms, bracing for a smartass reply. To her surprise, he just nodded, hauling himself up. Yeah, okay. Gimme a sec. He scrubbed a hand over his face, grabbed his guitar from the corner battered wood, strings worn thin, and shuffled toward Noah's room. She trailed behind, lingering in the doorway as he settled beside the kid. Hey, little man, Ethan said, voice low and warm. Monsters again? Noah nodded, scooting closer. Sing the light song. Sophia frowned. Light song? But then Ethan strummed a soft chord, and the melody hit her a slow, haunting tune that felt like a memory she couldn't place. He started humming, then singing, words so quiet she had to strain to hear. Lullaby under the lights, shadows fade in the night. Noah's eyes fluttered, his breathing evening out, and Ethan kept going, fingers moving like they'd never stopped. She should have left, should have gone back to her wine and her spreadsheets, but her feet wouldn't move. The rain, the guitar, Ethan's voice, it pinned her there, a knot tightening in her chest. When Noah finally drifted off, Ethan set the guitar aside and glanced up, catching her staring. "What?" he said, keeping his voice down. She shook her head, stepping into the room. "Nothing. Just where'd you learn that?" "Didn't learn it." He leaned back against the headboard, eyes on Noah. "Wrote it. For someone who's not around anymore." The knot twisted harder. She sank onto the foot of the bed, arms wrapped around herself. "Who?" He hesitated, then shrugged, like it didn't matter, but it did. "My mom. She split when I was a kid, after my dad's whole thing went down." "Your dad's thing?" She pressed, curiosity edging out her usual defenses. Ethan looked away, out the window where rain streaked the glass. He was a pianist. Big shot back in the day. Played Carnegie Hall, the works. Then some doping scandal hit steroids, of all things, like he was some damn linebacker. Ruined him. Ruined us. I quit music after that. Didn't want the spotlight. Sophia stared at him, pieces clicking into place. The piano earlier, he hadn't just stumbled onto it. He knew it the way she knew it. "You're good," she said, almost an accusation. "Why hide it?" "Same reason you locked that room up, I guess," he shot back, meeting her gaze. "Some stuff hurts too much to touch." Her breath caught. He didn't know about Emily, couldn't know, but he'd hit the mark anyway. She stood abruptly, needing air, and retreated to the hall. But his words followed her, and so did the itch to talk, to spill something she hadn't in years. Back in the living room, she grabbed her wineglass, then set it down untouched. Her feet carried her to the locked room before she could stop herself. The key was still in the drawer where she'd left it, cold against her palm. She unlocked the door, stepped inside, and let the dark swallow her. The piano loomed in the corner, silent but heavy with ghosts. Emily's laugh echoed in her head. "Come on. Soph. One more duet," and her knees buckled. She sat on the bench, fingers hovering over the keys, but didn't play. Footsteps behind her. Ethan, leaning in the doorway, guitar still slung over his shoulder. "You okay?" he asked, softer than before. She didn't turn. "No." "You?" "Nope." He stepped closer, hesitating. "That's your sister's, huh?" Her head snapped up. "How'd you?" "Picture on the mantel," he said, nodding toward the living room. "You two look alike. Same eyes." She swallowed hard, nodding. "Emily. Cancer. 7 years ago." "Shit. I'm sorry." He set the guitar down, sitting on the floor beside the bench, close, but not too close. "She play?" "Every day." Her voice cracked. "Taught me everything I know." They sat there, rain tapping out a rhythm, the city a blur beyond the glass. For once, they weren't fighting, weren't pretending, just two people with scars they didn't show the world. "You ever play anymore?" he asked after a while. "Not since she trailed off, shaking her head. "You?" "Not till tonight." He gave a small, crooked smile. "Guess Noah's got a way of dragging it out of me." She almost smiled back. "Almost. He's good at that." The silence stretched, comfortable now, like the rain had washed some of the sharp edges away. She didn't kick him out this time. Didn't want to. And when he picked up his guitar and strummed a few quiet notes, she didn't stop him. They stayed like that, lost in the sound, until the storm faded and the first gray light crept over the skyline. Music's bringing them closer. What a twist. Think Sophia's ready to let Ethan in? Or is this just a truce? Subscribe and drop a comment to let me know what you're betting on. The penthouse felt different the next morning, like the rain had scrubbed it clean, or maybe it was just the lack of yelling. Sophia stood at the kitchen island, nursing a black coffee, her hoodie swapped for a crisp blazer and slacks. She'd barely slept, the echoes of Ethan's guitar and their midnight talk still rattling around her head. Noah was at the table, munching on Cheerios, his bear propped up like a breakfast buddy. Ethan shuffled in, hair a mess, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from last night. He grabbed a mug, poured himself some coffee, and leaned against the counter, eyeing her over the rim. "Morning," he said, voice gravelly. "Morning," she replied, clipped but not cold. "Progress, maybe." Noah piped up, milk dribbling down his chin. "Ethan, play the song again?" Ethan chuckled, ruffling the kid's hair. "Later, bud. Gotta let the monsters sleep first." Sophia's lips twitched, almost a smile, but her phone buzzed on the counter, shattering the moment. She glanced at the screen and email, no subject, from an anonymous address. Her stomach dropped. She opened it and there it was. "I know who he is. Son of a disgraced junkie pianist. Step out of the Mercer deal or your husband goes public. 48 hours. A blurry photo was attached. Ethan, younger, standing backstage at some concert hall, next to a man who had to be his dad. "Victor," she muttered, gripping the phone so hard her knuckles whitened. Ethan frowned, setting his mug down. "What's up?" She didn't answer, just shoved the phone at him. He scanned it, his face hardening as he read. "Son of a bitch," he said, handing it back. "How'd he even?" "Doesn't matter," she cut in, pacing now. "He's got leverage. The Mercer deal's worth $500 million if I pull out. The board'll crucify me. If he outs you, the press'll eat us alive. Either way, we're screwed." Ethan crossed his arms, jaw tight. "So what's the play? Pay him off?" "No." She stopped, staring out at the skyline. "I don't negotiate with snakes. But you need to go. Now." He blinked, caught off guard. "Go where?" "Anywhere but here." Her voice was steel, but her hands shook as she poured more coffee she didn't need. "Take the money, take a month, lay low till I figure this out." "No way." He stepped closer, voice rising. "I'm not bailing on Noah or you just because some sleazeballs got dirt. This isn't about you." She snapped, spinning to face him. "It's about my company, my kid, my life. You're a liability now, Ethan. Get that through your head." His eyes flashed, and he leaned in, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in them. "And you're a control freak who thinks she can fix everything by pushing people away. I'm not your puppet, Sophia. I'm done running from who I am." The air crackled between them. Noah looked up from his Cheerios, wide-eyed, and whimpered, "Mommy?" She flinched, softening her tone. "It's okay, sweetie. Finish your breakfast." Then, to Ethan, quieter but no less fierce, "You don't get it. This isn't a game. He'll destroy us." "Then let him try," Ethan shot back. "I'm not some secret you can bury. I'll deal with it." "How?" she demanded, throwing her hands up. "You gonna charm him with a lullaby?" He didn't answer, just grabbed his jacket from the couch and stormed out, the door slamming hard enough to rattle the windows. Sophia stood there, chest heaving, coffee sloshing over the rim of her mug. Noah started crying, and she dropped to her knees beside him, pulling him into a hug. "Sure, it's okay," she murmured, but it wasn't. Not even close. The day dragged on, gray and heavy. She sent Noah to his nanny downstairs, locked herself in her office, and dug through every file she had on Victor emails, contracts, anything that could turn the tables. Nothing solid. Her phone stayed silent, no word from Ethan. By dusk, she was pacing again, the penthouse too big, too empty. She hated admitting it, but she missed his dumb grin, the way he filled the silence. Then, at 9 p.m., the elevator dinged. She froze, half hoping it was him, half dreading it. Ethan stepped out, soaked from the rain, his guitar case slung over his shoulder. He looked wrecked, eyes red, jaw set, but there was a fire in him she hadn't seen before. "Where've you been?" she asked, voice sharper than she meant. "Thinking," he said, dropping the case on the floor. "And I've got an idea." She crossed her arms. "Oh, this'll be good. Shut up and listen." He took a step closer, rain dripping onto the marble. "Victor wants to use my past against us. Fine, let's beat him to it. I'll do a gig right here tomorrow night. Live stream it. Play my song, tell my story. The whole damn mess, my dad, the scandal, me. People love a redemption arc. He'll have nothing left to throw." Sophia stared at him, mouth open. You're insane. Maybe. He shrugged, a ghost of a grin tugging at his lips. But it's better than hiding. You said it yourself, I'm good. Let me prove it. She shook her head, mind racing. And if it backfires? If they tear you apart? Then they tear me apart. Not you. Not Noah. His voice softened, and he met her eyes, steady and sure. I'm in this, Sophia. Whether you like it or not. Her throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to shove him out again. But something stopped her, maybe the way he said Noah's name, maybe the rain still clinging to his lashes. She sank onto the couch, rubbing her temples. You're gonna get us both killed. Nah, he said, sitting beside her, close enough that their knees brushed. Just famous. She snorted, a real laugh breaking through despite herself. You're an idiot. Yep. He nudged her shoulder. But I'm your idiot, right? For now, she muttered. But her walls were cracking, and they both knew it. She glanced at the guitar case, then back at him. You really think this'll work? I know it will. He leaned back, stretching his arms along the couch. Trust me. Trust you? She raised an eyebrow. That's a stretch. Then fake it, he said, echoing his line from the wedding. We're good at that. She didn't reply, just stared out at the city lights, the rain a faint patter now. Victor was still out there, circling like a vulture, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel alone in the fight. Ethan's crazy plan might just be crazy enough, and she was too tired to say no. Okay, she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. Let's do it. He grinned, full and bright, and for a second, the penthouse didn't feel so cold. The penthouse buzzed with nervous energy the next evening, transformed into a makeshift stage for Ethan's insane gambit. The living room was cleared out, couch pushed against the wall, coffee table hauled to the hall, replaced by a single spotlight jury-rigged from a floor lamp, and a tripod holding Sophia's old DSLR. Streaming live to YouTube. A tech guy from her PR team hovered in the corner, muttering about bandwidth and frame rates, while Noah sat cross-legged on a cushion, bare in his lap, watching Ethan tune his guitar with wide, trusting eyes. Sophia stood by the windows, arms crossed, her black blazer swapped for a sleek navy dress, simple but sharp, like she was heading into a board meeting instead of a live stream that could tank her life. The city sprawled below, a glittering mess of lights against the dusk, but her stomach churned like she was staring down a cliff. She'd spent the day digging deeper into Victor's dirt, and her assistant had just texted. A whistleblower from his firm had slipped her a USB drive with proof he'd paid a hacker to fake the scandal. It was a lifeline if this stunt worked. Ethan, meanwhile, looked like he'd just rolled out of bed, faded jeans, a worn flannel over a white tee, hair still damp from a quick shower. But his hands were steady as he plucked the strings, testing the sound. He glanced up, catching her eye. You ready? No, she said, voice dry. You? He grinned, lopsided and reckless. Born ready. She rolled her eyes but couldn't fight the flicker of warmth in her chest. Don't screw this up, Carter. Wouldn't dream of it, Langston. He winked, then turned to the tech guy. We live yet? 10 seconds, the guy said, counting down on his fingers. 5, 4, 3. The stream kicked on, the little red light blinking. Ethan straightened, strummed a soft chord, and leaned into the mic, an old karaoke one Sophia had dug out of a closet. Hey, hi everyone, he said, voice rough but warm. I'm Ethan Carter. You probably don't know me, but you might have seen my name in some headlines lately. Figured it's time to set the record straight. Sophia held her breath as the view count ticked up 50, 100, 500. Comments scrolled fast. Who's this guy? Sophia's husband? Play something. Ethan kept going, unfazed. See, I'm not just some random dude who married a finance queen. I'm a musician, or I was. My dad was too. James Carter. Played piano like nobody's business till a scandal took him down. Doping, they said. Ruined his career, our family. I ran from it, quit music, hid out. Till now. He started playing, slow and deliberate lullaby under the lights. The melody filled the room, soft but piercing, each note a confession. Noah swayed a little, humming along, and Sophia felt her throat tighten. Ethan's voice joined in, low and raw. Lullaby under the lights, Shadows fade in the night, the chat exploded. Holy crap. He's good. This is deep. Wait, that James Carter? He paused midway, looking straight at the camera. I'm not hiding anymore. This song's for my dad, for the mess he left, and the good he did before it. For Noah, who got me playing again. His eyes flicked to Sophia, softer now. And yeah, for her. Sophia. She didn't sign up for my baggage, but she stuck with me anyway. The room went still, even the tech guy frozen mid-sip of his Red Bull. Sophia's heart slammed against her ribs. He'd just said that live to thousands of people. She should have been pissed, but all she could do was stare, her walls crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. Ethan finished the song, the last note hanging in the air like a dare. The view count hit 10,000, then 20,000. Comments flooded. Redemption vibes. Marry him for real, Sophia. Victor's toast, lol. He set the guitar down, running a hand through his hair. That's it. That's me. Take it or leave it. The stream cut off tech guy's call, probably smart, and the penthouse erupted. Noah clapped, bouncing on his cushion. Yay, Ethan. The tech guy hooped. Dude, you're trending. Sophia just stood there, hands clenched, until Ethan turned to her, a question in his eyes. Well, he said, half smirking. Did I screw it up? She didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, she stepped forward, grabbed his hand, and squeezed hard. Real. You're crazy, you know that? Yeah, he said, squeezing back. Heard that before. The moment broke when her phone buzzed her assistant. Frantic. Sophia, check Twitter. Victor's hemorrhaging. That USB's gold, he's done. She pulled it up, and sure enough, hashtag Victor Grayson exposed was climbing, screenshots of leaked emails spreading like wildfire. The whistleblower had timed it perfectly with Ethan's stream. Reporters were already calling it Langston wins, Grayson's cooked. She looked at Ethan, still holding his hand, and laughed a real, shaky laugh. You did it. We did it, he corrected, pulling her closer. Noah ran over, wedging between them, and for a second, it was just the three of them. A sloppy, unplanned huddle in the middle of the chaos. Later, after the tech guy packed up and Noah crashed in his room, Sophia and Ethan sat on the couch, city lights spilling over them. She'd cracked open a bottle of bourbon top shelf stuff, not the cheap shot from the wedding night, and poured them both a glass. The piano sat quiet in its room, door still open. You meant that? She asked, swirling her drink. What you said on the stream. Which part? He teased, but his eyes were serious. The stuck with me part. He took a sip, then nodded. Yeah. If you'll have me. She didn't answer with words, just leaned over, slow and deliberate, and kissed him, not for cameras, not for show, but because she wanted to. It was messy, a little bourbon sharp, but real. He kissed her back, hands sliding to her neck, and when they pulled apart, he was grinning like an idiot. Guess that's a yes, he said. Shut up, she muttered, but she was smiling too. They stayed there, glasses clinking, talking about nothing: Emily, his dad, Noah's obsession with trains, until the sky turned pink. The next morning, she found him at the piano again, playing something new, light and hopeful. Noah joined in, banging random keys, and she didn't stop them. Instead, she sat beside them, fingers brushing the ivory, playing a shaky duet for the first time in years. Outside, Chicago woke up, oblivious to the little family stitching itself together 72 floors above. Victor was toast, the Mercer deal was hers, and the headlines screamed triumph. But the Real win was here, in the quiet notes and the kids' laughter, in the way Ethan's shoulder pressed against hers. She'd spent years building walls, but somehow, this scruffy guitar guy and her own kid had torn them down. And for once, she didn't mind. That's a wrap, folks. What did you think of Ethan and Sophia's big finish? Subscribe and drop a comment. Tell me your favorite moment or what you'd do in their shoes. Thanks for sticking with this wild ride. Marries her building guard.